Welcome to Mysterious Goings On. We're going to get right to the show after these messages.
Hi, this is Justin Connor, director of The Golden Age, and you're listening to the podcast Mysterious Goings On.
Welcome to Season 8, Episode 2. Can you believe it, folks? I'm still saying Season 8 because it makes me feel like I've accomplished some things here. It's because nothing is easy in podcasting. But there's something that it really is easy. It's the big easy. Do you see what I did there? Well, you'll see in a minute because we have a great guest here today, EJ Findorff. He's the author of 7 standalone novels that mostly take place in New Orleans, where he was born and raised. Despite experimenting with art, music, and acting at a young age, he eventually found writing while at the University of New Orleans, but didn't take his craft seriously until moving to Chicago, where he met his wife and settled down. Like many serious aspiring writers, EJ works full-time, while devoting every spare moment to writing in the hopes of one day making a living at it. EJ, I'm here to support you. Welcome to the support group that is Mysterious Goings On.
I need all the support I can get. Thank you very much.
It is my pleasure. I see in you a kindred spirit in so many. We've both written about the same number of books. Yours is not really a series. You do standalones, I believe.
Well, that wasn't a choice, but I up to this latest one, they have been standalones.
I was interviewing the guy who kicked off this season, who'd been on our show previously, Douglas Skelton, a Scottish author who's enjoying some real success now after years of in the mines.
I heard that episode, and I listened to his podcast as well as yours, actually.
Yeah, he's great, and he talks about how he. He has some series he started. He has one that has a couple or 3 books, and it's done. He didn't want it to be over, but it stopped selling. So he's like, I got to eat. I got to write what sells. So it's interesting. But I'm not hindered by that. I still have the day job, and so I just keep writing my series. But actually, I'm at a point now. Book 8 was going to come out at Halloween, and that's it. But anyway, we're not here talking about me. EJ, as I said, though, I am very interested to speak with you because if there's one through line I have seen, and I'd like to just talk about your work first, and then I'd like to delve into how you got started and what you're doing, as a writer. But even though these are all standalone books, there seems to be a character in common with each of them, which is New Orleans. Is that fair?
That's right. Yes. I moved away, and I missed it. I missed it so much. Katrina took away the house I grew up in, and my parents now live in Baton Rouge, which I believe your grandmother lives in Baton Rouge or is from Baton Rouge. Is that right?
You are blowing my mind. How do you know that?
You said it on a podcast.
You really do listen to the show occasionally, don't you? Oh my God.
I do.
You're actually reading one of the books, and or he's trying to, folks. And you're just my grandmother, my Mima, Baton Rouge. Yes. Oh my God. Yes. Go ahead. Sorry. You blew my mind.
No, I mean, I was in Chicago at the time, and there's a thing like ain't there no more for New Orleans residents, all the things that didn't come back, and a thing going around what it means to miss New Orleans, because just Katrina took away so much. So I had three books in a series written at that time, and they, to me, when it happened, they were basically useless because New Orleans wasn't the same place.
Oh, wow.
And I said I write standalone books because I had a system going where I would write a book, pitch it to agents and editors, get rejected, and then I'd self-publish it and then start the next one. get rejected, self-publish. You can't write a series. You can't have a second, third book in a series that you're pitching to an agent, because they're not going to take it.
There you
not,
go.
Not if they don't take the first one. So you're wasting your time, basically. So if you're a writer and you're looking to be traditionally published and you have a series idea, write the first one, leave the others alone, and keep trying, write a different book. Come back to it if it becomes a series.
That makes total sense, because my journey, regular listeners know, is that I tried like hell to sell Pilot's Cross and got really close with it, a couple agents, and then it was 2008, and then the bottom fell out of the economy, and they were all like, "Sorry, pal," and I just couldn't leave it alone, and I didn't, and I had, at the time, I kept thinking, well, if nobody wants it now, it could be years before an agent's going to even look at me because of the recession. So that's where I went, and by then it's like, so to your logic, EJ, it's not like I could go to my second book, Pilot's Key, and try to sell that to an agent, because he'd be like, because you kind of already poison the wine when you do that, don't you, with the series? I mean, if it's already self-published, no agent is going to look at you for that. They don't care, do they?
Yeah, I've been to several, quite a few conferences, and the agents say, don't do it. Yeah. Don't write the second or third unless you get the first deal. Or I mean, unless you're going to self-publish, because that gradually, the stigma was lost after a while.
Thank goodness.
And while I was hitting these Thriller Fest conferences, I was still trying desperately to be traditionally published. And I had some great experiences, great networking there. But my first book, Unhinged, I think there's two schools of thought, right? You for your first book, either you write your first book, make all your mistakes, put it aside, move on to your second, or you pound on that first one, correcting all the mistakes you made until you get something publishable. Yeah. I kind of did that with Unhinged, and I did the cardinal no at the time of printing it myself, because I worked at a print shop, binding it, designing it, starting a publishing company with a business license, putting a storefront on a website, and it was all crap. I mean, Unhinged was crap, and I wanted to so badly that I could do this, that everybody told me, do not self-publish. That's the kiss of death. Agents won't touch you.
Right.
Publishers won't touch you. It's a mistake. So I go to the Book Expo, and I mean, they were right. I sold a few copies organically, but not much at all, like maybe 10 copies. So I take my books to the Book Expo in New York, where I stalked an agent. Actually, that's something you never do either. I'm full of mistakes. You listen to me, you will learn what not to do. But so I'm stalking an area where you're only allowed in if you have an appointment for writers to talk to their agents. And I don't know if you can name names here, but I spot Donald Mass, right? And he's talking to his clients, and he's up on the balcony, and I wait. And then the guard at the stairs, he like walks away for some reason. So I take my moment. I go up there like some green rube, pitching my book. Like, I know you don't know me, but I got this book. And he's so nice about it. And he was so gracious. He gave me his card and everything. He said, send it in. And of course, I just showed how amateurish I was. But anyway, I took this. After that, I'm walking around the Book Expo, and I walk into Medallion Press's booth, and they're a mid-level. They were a mid-level publishing company in north of Chicago, and I start talking to a guy about it, and I start telling him all the mistakes I've made with the book and what I was doing, and he's like, "Well, give me the book, and I'll look at it." Well, it turns out that was the vice president I was talking to of Medallion Press, and 2 weeks later he called me. And he said, "We want to publish this."
Oh my!
So yeah, I'm like, okay, I'm going now. But no, it ended right there. Mass Market was on its way out. They signed me to an ebook deal only, but that made me a published writer.
Right. So
that opened up a wide avenue for me, which, I mean, we can talk about later, but I've kind of been rambling on about that.
No,
but Anyway, Unhinged got published, yeah, as an ebook, and it was heavily edited. The one editor said she's never edited a book so much, but I learned so much about the process and what it takes to write a good book that my subsequent books were immensely better.
Well, that's what it takes. I mean, the thing I'm hearing here is you're passionate about this. You've got more passion than I've heard from most of the writers I've interviewed on this show, to be honest with you. Even the ones who've made it, so to speak. I love that you Donald Mass. I mean, I know the name. It's just hilarious that you did that. It's so, but I love that you explained that and you're telling that. I mean, yeah. I mean, regular listeners know my first book. Now the book that's out now has been. This is like the second or third edition. It's been cleaned up, but I trusted a pretty crummy editor on the first book, to be honest with you, because I couldn't afford much. And I was like, well, this is what I've written is obviously great, so I'll just let this editor polish it up. Well, the editor did something to it, but I fixed that, got a better cover, and professionalized it. So I understand where you're coming from, EJ. But let me ask you this I want to ask you about the Thriller Fest and the conferences real quick. I have only had a few guests who regularly go to those. Most recently being Michelle Cox, who's a hybrid published author. She's having some real success right now, out of Chicago, by the way.
Nice.
If you haven't heard that episode, you might want to tune in. You'll probably meet her at one of these conferences you go to, EJ. She's a brilliant, sweet person. Tell me about the conference scene. I've only been to one writers conference in the past 5 years, and I find it to be. You've got to have your ducks in a row, and you've got to have a lot of energy, and you've got to have some luck too. Tell me about the experience. What should writers out there thinking of going to a conference? What would you tell them?
Thriller Fest is a bit pricey, but if you're looking, not even if you're looking to get traditionally published, but it's excellent for that. I've been going except for the pandemic for like the past 7 years. It's in New York. They have panels during the day, and they'll have cocktail parties at night, and it's held at the Hyatt Grand. And they say the magic happens at the Hyatt bar at these things, and they do. I met I don't know if you know author John Land. Does the Caitlin Strong series, Texas Ranger. He gave me a blurb for my book. Anyway, nice. he was like a ambassador for the first conference I went to. Spoke with everybody, very friendly. So I end up meeting a bunch of like people in the same boat I am, and we had a great time. You go to these banquets, you drinking. Lee Child's right there, Heather Graham's right there, and they walk around and you talk with them, and everybody's very friendly with their time. So I don't want to say I drank too much, but I closed the bar quite a few times. I met quite a few. They have Pitch Fest, and it's like dating, speed dating with agents. And over the years, they'd see me and know me by name, and I'd even get hugs, So I would know that it's not because I'm some faceless query letter,
right.
That I get thrown in a slush pile. They were rejecting me for real reasons. So yeah. Do you know? Have you heard of Liv Constantine?
That sounds familiar.
The Last Mrs. Parish. It was a Reese Witherspoon pick, and I think they're doing some kind of Netflix deal or something. I'm not sure. There's no details out. But I met her and her sister, who write together in tandem, just the first year by chance, and in the bookstore that they have at the Hyatt. And we started talking, and we became like really great friends. Like, I call her my conference wife. Don't know if I should be saying that. But every year she goes, I go, and we hang out all the time. We drink and we talk with people. And she's like they're on their third or fourth book now in domestic suspense with HarperCollins. And
wow,
she's doing great. And it's something to say, yeah, I knew her. I was there when she got the call, when she got her agent.
Wow.
And the people from Kensington, I'm at the bar one day trying to get a pizza before the cocktail party, just a little personal one. bar's packed. There's one spot open. So I'm waiting to order with the bartender. And the guy next to me starts talking to me. Doesn't have a name badge, but I'm telling him about my pitches in the book. He's like, oh man, that sounds good. Calls over a few people that are meeting him there. Agent, a couple of agents, a couple of authors. He's like, yeah, I'm a Gary Goldstein with Kensington, senior editor. You want to come out to dinner with us instead of getting that pizza? So just like off the bat, the magic happened. And
There you go.
I mean, nothing really came of that other than a couple of really good friendships. But yeah, I mean, here I am in New York having dinner with the Kensington people. And yeah, I mean, conferences, there's nothing like it. Face to face, the networking.
EJ, then you just met me, but I'm really thinking about going next year. If I go, will you show me the ropes a little bit?
Yeah, of course. There's a we always had a table in the Hyatt bar where the authors would rotate in and out, and quite a few times the big names would come in. Jeffrey Deaver sat down with us and talked with us for a while over beer. J.D. Barker. I'm sitting at the debut author's breakfast. Table's practically empty. J.D. Barker comes and sits down. There's a couple people there. Sits down next to me, and we start talking. And I read his book, the MLK series. And he tells me, yeah, so James Patterson read that book and he gave me a call and he wants to co-write with me. So he's like working on his second book with James Patterson.
Nice.
And now I stay in touch with J.D. Barker over email.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And you just have to know that these relationships they're already paying off in one way, obviously, but you just have to know they'll pay off, I think, eventually in another way. Let me ask you though a little bit, if you don't mind, to shift gears here. But well, actually, one more question, then I'll shift gears. So it sounds to me like you're telling serious writers who are very serious about trying to break in that a conference is not a bad way to go if you can afford to go. Yes?
Not at all. Not if you want the community, and you'll learn things during the panels. Eventually, you go enough, you won't hear too much that's new. Yeah. But you get to see the same people, and you're making friends, and I believe that helps your writing, knowing that they're out there and you have something to look forward to. I tell my wife that's my Christmas. She lets me go, and it's 3 or 4 days, and there's all kind of things to do, mastercraft and other stuff. And even if you're happy with your self-publishing, just meeting the authors that have made it. And I ran into Joanna Penn there before I even knew who she was, and was talking with her. So I don't know about all the other conferences, but the people at Thriller Fest, I'll say that it's the best one they go to.
I've heard good things, and I was interested to see that you had been there before we had our conversation, so I was glad to be able to talk with you about it. Thank you for sharing that. I intend to do that because my plan is to get this John Pilot series put to bed with this last book, and then I'm starting new stuff, but I intend to try to pitch it for traditional again and just not even mention this stuff. Just get a new book done and start pitching, starting the hamster wheel of disappointment. But I'm willing to do it. I believe, if nothing else, my series has gotten me. Well, people who've read the series have said, "My gosh, yeah, you've grown a lot." So I think that I'm ready to do something different. So I don't know. I think Thriller Fest should be in my future.
Me too. We'll get there. We'll have a beer.
I love it. Sounds good. Let's talk about your latest. I want to talk about Blood Parish. EJ, what's going on here with Angel Blondo? I want to know about this.
All right. Well, special FBI agent Angel Blondo was raised in a ruthless crime family that controls a fictional parish in North Louisiana. She's been taught from birth to never betray, never betray family, but she rejected that way of life, and she moved away to become an FBI agent and gets stationed or assigned to the field office in New Orleans. So she inherits her aunt's house, and moves back to discover her family helped perpetrate a mass murder about 30 years ago.
Ooh.
Or 30 years prior. So yeah, so she ends up staying to immerse herself back in that criminal element.
So, is this? And I ask this question a lot. And I'm beginning to realize this question is probably in danger of being viewed as sexist. But I ask this of a lot of my male writer guests. So your lead character is female. Is that challenging for you to write in the female voice?
I wouldn't say it's challenging because I have written in a female voice before, and like you said, this is like my 7th one coming out, so I'm comfortable in the writing, and I've had a lot of female friends growing up. I'd say maybe if not half, a little more than that, and my sister, obviously, and the females in your family. Yeah, I think as long as you don't get too stupid with what they're doing, it could be very believable. And then when you have your female beta readers telling you, you've done it right, then, you just, you don't slap man qualities on the female.
Exactly, but you also don't condescend either. It's a fine line, and I think I've been terribly self-conscious about it with mine. I know the book I'm working on after I'm done with the pilot series is the lead will be a female because I think I'm finally confident enough to do that. So I'm always curious to ask other male writers, where you got your confidence with that. But you just explained that. So,
but if I can just say though,
sure, yeah, sure.
I recently, and it might have been Joanna Penn's podcast. Apparently, there's software out there that when you input your writing, it could tell if it's a feminine or masculine point of view.
Yeah.
So if you're writing a female and the thing thinks it's male, then yeah, you got to rework it a little bit.
Now, Alessandra Torre, New York Times best-selling author, she was a guest on the show. She's working with Authors AI, and that sounds like something that they're working on. They're working the kinks out. That's part of it. So
that sounds amazing.
It's if you haven't, hey EJ, if you haven't heard that episode with Alessandra Torre, it's been a while, a few months, but you might want to check that out. She's great. She's fantastic. In fact, I might be down. She's in Key West. I might be down that way soon. I should probably ask to look her up. But then again, she'd probably be like, "Oh God, not that podcast guy again." So tell you what. So let me ask you something about it. I love to ask this question. And I love getting a fellow writer in the hot seat to ask. I'd love to know, you're on your 7th book here, it's coming out. How long does it take you to write a book? Has it changed since Unhinged to Blood Parish?
It hasn't changed because of my work schedule. I put out basically 1 book a year. If I wasn't working, I could probably do 2, possibly 3 if I really concentrated on it. But I do find like on a Saturday, if I dedicate my day to it, that I could spend maybe a good 3 or 4 hours really focusing on it, and then I lose my train, and maybe I can come back to it, but otherwise my eyes just start, I don't know, glossing over, and so I don't know if I would work a full day. If I was a full-time writer, I don't know how that would work.
I think I could max 4 or 5 hours a day before, because I write during the day for my day job anyway, but just the novel itself is like, over my shoulder, you can't see it in here, but there's a box from Staples where I printed out the the draft, to go back and do the markup before I hand it over to my agent after I correct that. And I mean, that's been sitting there for 2 weeks just staring at me. But I kind of like to let things marinate a bit and come back to it. But I think just like you, if I had all the time in the world, I can't see me doing. I think after about 4 years, that's it.
I'm listening to these podcasts, and there are authors saying, yeah, I output 6-8 books a year. Ugh. And that's all they do, right? So they're constantly writing and marketing, and they're given marketing advice, right? So they're like, well, if this series, doesn't work for this, and you take this other series and you do this. How many authors have 3 series of 8 books, 10 books each ready I mean, who are they giving marketing advice to? I don't get it. But I mean, they're fantasy writers, so I imagine it's. I mean, if you have a great imagination, you can just whip out a good fantasy
I used to
book.
think I did, but it's you know it. I know this that it's gone the different way for me, but part of it's because in the past, well, I've been writing these things since 2007 or something like that. I mean, I've had a daughter, I've got a kid, I run my own company, I've got other responsibilities, but as putting that aside, I'm just getting older, and I'm finding it's getting tougher for me, and
You look like you're 26.
you are a total sweetheart, buddy, but I'm 50 plus, so it's
Me too, man.
you are not. Really? You don't look like you're really.
I'm
That's
54.
well, you got a
And,
little on me, don't you?
and I'm older than you.
Yes.
You look too young.
Listen, we're not in the same room. I mean, seriously, it's all smoke and mirrors. When I meet you at Thriller Fest, you'll be going, "Oh, there it is. There you go. He's old." Okay, yeah.
That must be his dad.
so I guess to finish my thought though, it's like I know that like now the first book it took me forever because I was unsure and all that stuff, but the second book, Pilot's Key, which actually is arguably my most successful critically and sales wise, which says a lot for the books afterward, not much. That one I wrote in 3 months, the first draft, and then I got another 3 months with my editor on it, and boom, it was out almost immediately. And that's something that is the lightning in a bottle I've been trying to recapture, I think, because there's something about the inspiration and I'm just going, you know what I mean? I've never really been able to get that back since.
Oh, You need to be inspired. Like
I don't even know if it's that. I don't know if it's that. I've been inspired to write them, but EJ, I don't know. I'm a pantser. I don't plot out the books very much or anything like that, but it just seemed like, that moment, or it's not a moment, but it becomes a moment. It's distilled. But you know that when you're working and you're writing, and it just pours out of you, and it just keeps going, and you're on a hot streak, and you don't want to stop. You're afraid if you stop, you'll lose it.
I know it. Yeah.
That happened to me a lot early on, and it's a lot less now. Now, a good friend of mine said this, so I want to ask you this. That's one reason why I'm interested in talking to you about your books, because they're standalones, right? But we did talk about how you want to do series. But there's this point where a friend of mine said, well, maybe the fact is just that this series is done and you're bored with it. You're like Arthur Conan Doyle with Holmes. He's like, I'm done with that guy. I want to do something else. And I think that really is the case. And that sounds terrible to the people who listen who actually enjoy my books, both of them. I just don't want to make sure that I want to make sure that they understand. I still respect the characters and I love the series and I always will, but I've got to move on.
That's very valid. Yeah,
So.
I can see it. If you're not going to get death threats by ending it, then yeah, I think it's time for you to start something fresh and get that mojo back.
Yeah.
I finally decided that I'm done pitching the agents that I'll say, hey, we love the writing, we just don't think we can sell it. So I'm ready to jump into this Blondo mystery series, and I got one ready to come out in probably a month or two, and another one done where I picked up an old idea that I already had partially written, and I'm like, this would work perfect. So I got that going, and hopefully, like these people I just railed on, I might have 3 releases in a year, maybe. I don't know. But I mean, the ARC readers I signed up to get with Book Sprout and Book Siren, Book Sirens, I have like a 4.5 average, I think, now on Goodreads with like 50 reviews on it, and they're mostly women and they're loving the first book. And I sent out an email blast saying who wants to beta read the second one. And, I'm getting responses in all caps with exclamation points. Me, send it.
Right.
Which is very, what's the word?
Gratifying?
Yes. Or validating even.
And validating, yeah.
I'm doing something right.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it sounds like you are doing something right. And I'd love to, as we round out here, I'd love to ask you though this.
I hate that it goes this fast. I'm thinking, how am I going to fill this up with bullshitting? And it's like almost over. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
and
Go
you,
ahead.
you have
I'm
and you have
wasting
all this
time.
great. And listen, I mean, I'm not kicking you out the door. I'm not saying here's your hat, what's your hurry. But I'm just I just want to. But my point being, it's you know what I've heard. The through line I'm hearing with you right now, though, besides your passion for this, is and I know this is simplifying it, and you're going to tell me no. I get plenty, frustrated and disappointed. But it sounds like to me you just keep going and you don't get down about it. I mean, is that fair to say? Do you just keep swimming?
Yeah, I mean, I have a I have a saying that, or not really a saying, just a thought that if I knew, absolutely knew, I was going to be 80 years old and never do this for a living, would I still do it? And yeah, I love writing. I love rereading the stuff I forgot I wrote,
Yeah.
and I'm like, wow, that's pretty good. Um, if I do say so myself. But I found that since, I mean, 15, 20 years or so of doing this, since I started writing that first book, the journey, I mean, I have so many other stories that I could tell you that that make up the whole of this so-called career I got.
Yeah.
That it's fun. It just trying the way publishing is evolving right now is it's fun to learn. And even though Amazon's pay to play, and it's really difficult to get your name out there. I mean, you start off with a small fan base and just build from there. That's. Oh, I mean, I wanted to say the first 6 books I didn't even market. I thought, hey, the cream rises to the top. I'm going to put my books out there. People are going to read it, word of mouth, blah, blah. And I was concentrating on writing, and I'd put out an ad once or twice here and there, and I'd sell some stuff organically. And finally, my friend's like, what are you doing? You're not even trying. So JD Barker actually said, you got to do a book launch. You got to make your page look like a publisher's page,
Right.
where they can't tell the difference.
Right.
So yeah, Blondo Parish. Blood Parish was the first book I actually did anything with, that I'm trying to do something with. And, I got over 500 email subscribers now. And
That's huge. I don't have that. I've never, EJ, I've never managed to crack the e-blast. I half-heartedly ask for people, but nobody signs up. And I put a lot of my attention money into some Amazon ads and some Google ads, and also some stuff I did with a syndicate. But anyway, and that really, I started doing that at the end of last year because I did what you did for a while. I was just like, well, it's my series. If they want to read it, the same people will buy it, and they did. But it wasn't like gonna ever. But then I did that, and I've been living. I mean, I did that, and I ran ads and did some promotion, very solid from October all the way through about March, and it's just still going. I'm living off of that a little bit, so it's good to hear that you're doing the same.
Yeah, it's time to get cracking.
Yeah, yeah. We're not getting any younger, pal. We look young, but
That's right. And people say the best advice they get is to write the next book, and as simple as it is, that's it. You got to keep your readers seeing new stuff coming out,
right.
and that's how you keep them and start building on it.
Don't make it easy for people to disregard you or forget about you. You just can't do that. That's why I did this. That's why I started this podcast initially. It's funny. I started this podcast in 2016 to talk about my work, and then until I realized that most people don't give a crap about your work, Alex. So I started, let's talk to other writers, and that's when the show took off. So, but let me ask your opinion on something, man. Because I respect where you're going, and I want to. I've also thought, here I am musing about this in front of my audience. Is this podcast, though, taking some of the big creative chunk of time that I should be spending writing? And I think I know the answer to that. Any thoughts on that? Do you say to you, Alex, nice show, but
how much time do you spend outside of actually doing the interview on your podcast?
Okay, so let's say the interview is just under an hour, right? I do at least depending if I have time to read the book of the person I'm going to interview, I do. So that's however long that takes, but that's getting more and more rare. It's just hard. And I have you see this stack behind? You can't see it, but EJ can. These are books right here. Publishers have sent me to for guests, so I can't read them all anymore, which is great. But production for each show, so for every hour of recording time, there's a half hour to an hour of prep, and then an hour of production afterward, and then another hour probably of marketing. So it's a big chunk of time every week.
Yeah, that's hard to say. Would you actually be writing if you weren't doing it?
I think I would have to do something to be creative. So I'm just wondering if those 3 or 4 hours a week might be better spent there. I don't know, but
I
there's
don't
also
think so. If
you don't
that's
think
all
so?
it is, if that's all it is, I don't think so.
Because it still gives me an outlet to meet people like you, and to learn things, and also to promote my work.
I would love to do this, but first of all, I have a horrible voice. I hope you have some kind of voice disguiser there or something. That my voice sucks, and you know, my self-esteem can suck it. I decided, hey, I'm gonna do it. I don't care how I sound.
You're fine.
Okay, if you say so.
You really are. No, you really are. It's fine.
Um,
I was hoping for a little more Cajun, but okay.
Oh, I lost my accent very early on. People were making fun of me in Chicago, and somehow it slowly went away.
Oh,
But it comes back when I go visit.
yeah.
So we can co-host if you want, you know.
That sounds good. That sounds good. Well, I'd be happy to have you back. That's for sure.
We talk publishing first, and then
Yeah.
we move on to our guest.
I like that. That's good. Well, one thing I am considering seriously is having an occasional guest host, maybe not co-host,
Hey.
but maybe a fill-in. Because I have to. But even if I don't quit the shows, I've got to be more realistic about how many guests I do a year. I mean, I have another podcast, PR After Hours, that I had over 30 guests
Wow.
last year, and to date I've had so many, and so I'm trying to get it down there. I've just got to work on that. But this isn't about me. This is about you. And I want to say, EJ, you've got so many great books here, and I'd like for everybody to check them out. Everything from Unhinged to Kings of Delusion, Where the Devil Won't Go, The Unraveling, A French Quarter Violet, 100
Kings.
Bullets.
Kings of Delusion is a story. I mean, do we have to wrap up, or do you have?
We got to go in a minute. Yeah, I've got to wrap. Folks, we're recording a little later than I usually do, and to get that time from family, I had to carve it out. So, but tell me a little about Kings of Delusion before we wrap up. We'll have you back. Don't worry.
That book was written because an agent who liked my writing but didn't want the book I submitted said she liked the Katrina idea. Did I have anything on that? And the flooding. And I'm like, no, but I could write something. So I actually wrote a book for this agent. And I found a paramedic who lived through the flooding of New Orleans with the police and firefighters and the paramedic. They were all together. And it took them like 3 days to get out. And it was quite an adventure. And he signed away his accounts for me to use to write this fictional book.
Wow.
A fictional murder. It takes place during the flooding of New Orleans. And at the time I wrote it, it was like my most meaningful thing I've written. And she took it on and she submitted it to the Big Five. And she gave me very, very beautiful rejection letters from the editors telling why they didn't like it, but they all said it was a great story. So I'm like, well, this is too good to just sit around. So I self-published it.
Yeah. Well, that's still, that puts you light years ahead of so many writers, though, dude. You got people who believe in you. From what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing, and just looking at your work, it's just a matter of time.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you. Tell you what, if people want to find your books, learn more about you, where do they go?
www.ejfindorff.com. Just my name, or just look me up on Amazon, or I'm published wide now. So Barnes and Noble, Kobo, wherever you buy your books.
Sounds great, man. Sounds great. Tell you what, I might take you up on that guest host thing sometime if you want. But beyond that, if next time you got something new, I think you ought to come back and tell us about it if you don't mind.
I'd love to, of course. I'm going to be a regular.
Sounds good to me. Ladies and gentlemen, EJ Findorff has joined us with some mysterious goings on of his own. Check out his work. I will have links in the show notes, of course. And I hope you all enjoy as we move next week into episode 3 of season 8. My gosh, what is going on here?
Woo!
Woohoo! All right. Okay, who has a podcast, then writes an ebook about podcasting and doesn't do an audiobook version of it? Well, not me. I've done that. In fact, I'm very excited to tell you, dear listeners, that the podcast option, my recent top-selling ebook on podcasting, my journey through 15 years as a podcaster, broadcaster, host, guest, and observer, is now an Audible audiobook. It's really, really, really exciting for me to be able to present this to you through Audible, which is available on Amazon.com, where the ebook link is as well. And in this fast listen, my experience comes to you through stories, practical tips, and advice from my hundreds of hours as a guest, producer, podcast host, and more. And the podcast option, if I say so myself, is mandatory listening for those new to podcasting, and it should be a welcome addition to veteran podcasters' libraries. So check out the podcast option read by yours truly, Alex Greenwood, or as they say there, the J. Alexander Greenwood, because that's my pen name, and that's a long story, which if you dig through my podcast, eventually you'll find out what that means. But the point being today, the podcast option is available now as an Audible audiobook. I've got a link in the show notes to make it easy for you. Please do me a favor, go get that audiobook, or if audiobooks aren't your bag, there's also a link for you to get it as an ebook. Again, the podcast option. I certainly hope you will choose it. You know, I love podcasting. I have since 2006, back when you had to use like a Dixie cup with string to make the thing work. And that's why I'm so excited that we recently moved Mysterious Goings On to Anchor FM to record our podcast. I gotta tell you, I don't regret it a bit. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First of all, it's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. And you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. Not going to lie to you, when I first heard about Anchor, I was a little dubious because I've been doing it the hard way for so long. But I got to tell you, it's very easy. Use a Stripe account. Get sponsors. You're not paying monthly hosting fees. The sound quality is great. The distribution is phenomenal. Friends, download the free Anchor app today if you want to start your own podcast, or go to anchor.fm to get started. Remember, you heard it here first on Mysterious Goings On. Thanks so much for listening to Mysterious Goings On. Don't forget, we have a complete archive of all of our interviews, monologues, updates, live readings, dead readings. All of that stuff is available at mgopod.com. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to us so you never miss an episode. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the usual suspects. Please join us there. Again, don't forget, mgopod.com also has links where to find me on social media and how to get in touch in case you want to be a guest here on the show. Well, I think it's time that I move on for this week, but until next time, keep reading.